Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're talking about brakes and rotor size and why size matters. So let's get into it right now. So if you've been following my channel, you know that I'm changing my brakes over to 4-piston hydraulic. 4-piston in the front, 4-piston in the back. Now I haven't decided on the rear rotor size. I happen to have a 203, which is an 8-inch rotor, and I'm probably going to put that on here. Now on the front of this Lectric XP 2.0, I have a 8-inch 203 millimeter front rotor. Now if you see this wrench right here, you see the length of this wrench. This ratchet wrench, ratchet with a socket, has a very long reach, which gives you a lot of leverage. Leverage is what does most of the work. Now if you were to try to take this wheel off with this small 3/8 inch ratchet, you would have to exert a lot of force, and you probably couldn't break that nut free. Now what does that have to do with anything? It's all about leverage. So the rotor that came on the XP is a 6-inch rotor. So if you see the size of this 6-inch rotor compared to the one that's on there, you will see a big difference in the size. So this is the big rotor, 203 or 8-inch, and this is a small one, which is a 6-inch. Now this 6-inch rotor gets the job done. You're trying to stop a 65-pound bike with however much more the passenger weighs, and this is up to a class 3 bike that can go 28 miles an hour. And maybe more if you change the freewheel on the back to an 11. But this bigger rotor gives you more leverage. So it makes the brake pads work less. They have more strength to stop. This little ratchet has almost no leverage compared to this ratchet. It's all relative, guys. The bigger the rotor, the better the brake calipers, the easier it is to stop all this rotating mass, and also to stop this 65-pound bicycle plus rider. So the rear rotor will be changed over to this 203 also. I'll have to see how that goes, but that's on my schedule. I'm going to be doing some house renovation shortly, so I won't be getting back into this rear brake for a while. But you can see the massive difference in the size of that rotor. Now I picked up two rotors for 20, I think it was 2 rotors for 20 bucks. So it was, with shipping and everything, it was better just to go ahead and pick up 2 than to pay more for just 1. So I'm really pleased with this rotor, the way it's working on the front brake, and I'm sure that it will work great on the back brake. Now the problem with these back brakes and the front brakes is they didn't sit down over the rotor deep enough. The contact area is rubbing way up in the top. So let's talk about that. So we're looking at the rear mechanical caliper. And if you look down here, this pad is way over the top of that rotor, and it's over the top of the rotor on this side too, which means the pad is higher than the rotor. So the pad is not sitting down getting a good contact area on the rotor, which means it's riding high, which allows for uneven pad wear, because that top edge of that pad is not even going to wear at all, and then it's going to have to wear around the top of that rotor, and it won't seat properly, because as soon as it gets a little bit of wear in this area, it's going to be uneven, unflat, and it's not going to follow the rotor. So that is a problem with the factory brakes. Not alone just the fact that it has cable and not hydraulic. This affects it even more because the pads are not going to ride on the rotor properly. Now there is no adjustment for that. You can adjust the rotor side to side. You can adjust the rotor side to side, but you can't adjust the rotor down because there's nowhere to go. So it's just the way it is. Certain things line up and certain things don't when you're talking about production. It's not a critical thing, I guess, to have your rotor ride properly with your brake pads on this build. But if this was a little bit less, since there is no adjustment, you would have to mill some of this off right here and get this pad to come down further onto the rotor. See, this rotor has the pad material is not even touching right here. This whole section, the pad material is not touching. But higher up, all the way to the top of this rotor and over the top is where those pads are riding. And those pads are causing a big squeal simply because they're not fitting properly onto this rotor. And there's no adjustment for that. Now, I was really pleased with my front brake contact area, the front brake contact area. Let's go look at that now. The brake contact, the pad contact area is the whole width of the rotor, and the pads are not riding way up high over the top of the rotor, which causes the pad, like I said, not to wear properly. You must be down over the complete top of the rotor in order to get your pad to wear properly. So I've only got about 118 miles on this, and the rear brake is squealing pretty bad. The pads are not wearing properly, and there's no way to get that rotor to sit properly in that pad without doing some machine work on the mounting boss for the rear caliper. But I just wanted to get into this, why size matters. So there is good, and there's good enough, and there's great. So when you take a tool that is a certain length compared to a rotor that's a certain length, you can only apply so much torque to that little ratchet. You put a big ratchet on there and you can apply a lot of torque easily. It makes it easy, and that's what the deal is with bigger rotors. It makes the calipers work easier, and it stops the vehicle easier. Stops the bicycle easier. Now the whole thing is to not lock up your brakes, because you only have a 3-inch contact on these tires. So these tires, once your tires break free, it's similar to anti-lock brakes. You can stop in a shorter distance if you don't lock up your brakes than if you lock up your brakes. So this 3-inch tire is your only contact with the ground. And what you want to be able to do is modulate that brake to apply those brakes without locking up that tire. That's the whole purpose for having better brakes.